I said it. We got the band back together. Yes, indeed. Right here in the Terracotta Room, Dara, Cam, and Jim Rosica. Frequent guest of the show and everyone's favorite with the great radio voice too, by the way. News director of the Tallahassee Democrat and the Capitol Bureau coordinator for USA Today Network in Florida. Joins Deeper Dive with me, Dara, Cam, to talk about FSU. We're a company town, and that's the company. Biden in Tampa and Bob Graham lying in state this week in the Florida Capitol, the old Florida Capitol. Join us. You don't want to miss it.
You can't put too much importance or faith in any one individual poll, but what do you need the individual polls for? You need the individual polls to create the trend line.
You're listening to A Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida.
Wait for it, folks. We are getting the band back together again in the Terracotta Room. My special guest today, I am Dara Cam, and you are...
Jim Rosica. Back in Back with the groove in the Terracotta Room, scouting around looking for all my old albums that I left here. Where's the black t-shirt I left on a hook on the door? Everything's been moved.
Yeah, we purloined all the good stuff,
Everything's
buddy.
been exactly.
We that shit's gone.
Moved my cheese all over the place.
Yeah, we ate it too. We not only moved it,
we ate it. Yeah, there we go.
Jim Rosica, my special guest and my dear buddy, is the news director of the Tallahassee Democrat and the Capitol Bureau coordinator for USA Today Network Florida. Welcome back to A Deeper Dive with me, Dara Cam.
Thank you, Dara Cam. It is so good to be back again in the Terracotta Room.
Isn't
in the old office across from my old desk that has now been taken over by somebody else, apparently.
No, it's just a dumping ground.
It is a dumping ground?
Yeah, it's a dumping ground.
Old magazines, old newspapers, used up notebooks. I get it. Yeah.
And monitors that I can't seem to figure out how to function in other areas. Okay, well, I am so happy to have you back, and I'm going to make you a regular friend of the show again. So I hope you're ready for that. You're buckled up for that. But for today, we have a lot to talk about. And at the top of the list is something that I know the Democrat cares about, and every sports writer in the United States of America. The Florida State University, the legal battle between FSU and the Atlantic Coast Conference, which funnily enough, I will concede that I know the least about sports of anyone who works at this organization. And I was the one who has written 2 stories about that this week. And so my guys we went out to lunch yesterday. Went out to lunch with my guys yesterday. And I got an hour and a half schooling on all things NCAA and ESPN and Fox and Disney and Rupert Murdoch.
Where's that guy? Where's that guy you're talking about? Can we bring him in here? I mean, he could teach me something. I am not. I will. In full disclosure, I am not a sports. I have never been a sports reporter or a sports editor. Not like some of our other colleagues who did some sports work before they wound up covering news and politics. But obviously, what we know is that there is this entity called for you non-football fans out there. There is an entity called the Atlantic Coast Conference that Florida State University has long been a member of, and it now wants to get out. And so they filed a suit an action rather in here in Leon County, and then because the ACC can't let that stand by itself, they filed their own action.
They preempted it a day early. They filed it, right?
They beat them to the punch.
Yeah.
I don't want to say
okay,
preemption.
they didn't. No, because that has a
got
legal.
a specific
I know, you're a
legal
lawyer.
meaning.
Right.
I'm going to say that.
Yeah.
And so there's really two actions going on. If I recall, the one in North Carolina is kind of been held in abeyance as we wait to see what happens here in Leon County. This week, there was another hearing in FSU's case against the ACC trying to get out, in which, judging by our own coverage, the judge on the case, longtime judge here in Leon County by the name of John Cooper. Funny historical anecdote. I actually wrote the profile of him when he was first becoming a judge here.
Tell us about
25 years ago.
Tell us about John Cooper.
I will tell you what I remember from going to his office to interview him for this article, and that was he was at least at that time a great aficionado of cigars, as I was at the time.
Oh, I remember you being the cigar guy.
I think he may have had not one but two humidors in his office. And so we were comparing cigars that he liked at the time. And he also had...
Do you still smoke cigars?
No, I have a wife and two kids. No.
You gave up the motorcycles too?
No, it's the Harleys in the garage with a tarp over it. It's depressing. Come to my house and see all my toys I can't use anymore. So he is also an FSU guy,
right.
But obviously that that did not just because of the fact that he went to FSU. I guess because he didn't. There was nobody called for him to. Recuse himself or disqualify himself from the case. So he is still on it. The last twist of the screw, so to speak, was he has now put a hold on that case.
Yes.
Telling FSU fix it, bolster your arguments, come back with some better stuff.
Yeah.
And this is all because FSU wants to get out of the ACC because of media money.
Mo money.
Yeah, mo money. I don't know what that type of money is called. I forget.
It's called a grant of rights is
That's
the official term, a grant of rights. And it has to do with money that they get from being aired on ESPN. So the ACC, and this is what I learned yesterday.
Which is
we should get
Disney.
Tom in here. We should get Tom in. Right. So the ACC games, different conferences games are broadcast on different networks. But these deals, they entered into these contracts, the conferences with the networks before there was, at the time when everybody still was plugged into cable, before there was streaming.
Cable TV.
Yeah, before there was streaming. And so they feel like FSU... the big ticket item here is, and why FSU is suing or filing an action, is because in order to extricate themselves from the conference, there's a penalty that they would have to pay of somewhere in the range of $500 million.
We don't want to pay that. No.
I mean, I was talking, we were setting up before we started recording. I was like, this is a story all over, but it is especially a story in Tallahassee, which is a company town. I mean, it is anyone who has been to Tallahassee on the weekends or lives in Tallahassee.
Or lives in Tallahassee.
I mean,
or visited 5 years ago with great Aunt Betty.
Exactly. It is, garnet and gold every Saturday during football season. And I like to do my grocery shopping during football games because it's kind of like
nobody's around.
Right. It's tumbleweeds, right?
Yes, exactly.
Everybody's over at Doak. And there were I was in the hearing the other day and there was a lot of the choke it doke talk, which apparently refers to some game. So we've got two sort of sports idiots here.
Yes, exactly.
We're usually
Right now, I'm just thinking of Dara in a Publix going, da, na, 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 na. Ooh, 2-for-1 barbecue sauces. Ooh, wow.
You know I don't eat barbecue sauce. I have diabetes. It's got too much sugar.
Ooh, 2-for-1 granola bar boxes. I wish I could eat those. I'm going to note that and tell my friend Jim. Hey, Jim, there's 2-for-1 granola boxes at Publix.
I have been to all the years I've lived in Tallahassee.
2 home games.
2 home games, and they were both because I was there to cover someone who was at the game. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I might have gone to one other one that actually someone had his box seats, and they invited me to go to because that's how we roll.
That's how
here.
we roll. But anyway, to finish up this segment, because we ain't got no place else to go. Actually, yes, we do. So the case in Leon County, the case in North Carolina, I believe, has been on hold. Now the case in Leon County is on hold because the judge has told FSU go back and
but
your
really,
arguments.
both of the cases, the first thing they have to decide is where should these cases be tried?
Where should we be doing
where
this
should we
exactly?
be doing it? And so it's called, there was a personal jurisdiction is what they were focused on during the Tallahassee hearing the other
And now
day.
you're going to give me a law school flashback and cause me to crawl up in a ball on the
and
floor
then a sovereign
here.
immunity issue in North Carolina, and they're actually kind of the same thing, like whether they can be tried in Florida or in North Carolina.
So you're getting more use out of my law degree than I am. That's pretty amazing. Okay. I borrowed I let Dara borrow my Fran law degree just so she could have it in her house.
It was also purloined from
of course, exactly, when I left the office.
detritus.
So she can gather the vibes from the diploma on the wall and absorb that legal knowledge.
Oh man. So the Attorney General, Ashley Moody, I wrote this story yesterday.
Yes.
She yesterday, as we record this, she is getting involved in the case. In the cases. She is not happy that the judge in North Carolina allowed that case to proceed. And so she is enlisting other state attorneys general in states that have ACC teams to also, tell their schools not to participate. Because anyway, it's complicated. It's a very sort of convoluted. But I think basically what we need to know is that the cases are moving. They have not been dismissed. A lot of money on the line. FSU wants to get more money from a different conference, and
millions and millions
hundreds
of dollars,
of millions,
hundreds
of millions.
of millions of dollars.
So that's the FSU.
So that's FSU ACC.
saga.
I'll play us out of this segment. Na, 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 na. That's all I can remember. Okay, what's next?
Okay, next.
What's next on our hit parade?
President Biden comes to the Sunshine State.
President Biden was in Tampa yesterday. He spoke, I
what did he
believe,
do?
he spoke at 2:00 to basically, I'm greatly oversimplifying this, but as you know, we had a very important Florida Supreme Court decision here, in which they ruled in a case about the state's abortion ban.
Two important rulings.
Correct. That was 15 weeks. But if they deemed the 15-week ban okay, that meant that a subsequently passed 6-week abortion ban would be okay, and that goes into effect soon.
May 1st.
There you go.
May 1st.
So
days after this comes out.
So Biden came to Tampa to talk about reproductive rights in general, but he tried to tie actually the onerous, I think he called it, 6-week ban to Trump, who is obviously a Florida man himself.
The Democrats are, I don't want to use I'm self-censoring for
very good reasons.
For the first time ever, Dara self-censors. The Democrats are really linking Trump to all of the abortion restrictions all around the country, including Florida's 6-week ban, because Trump appointed 3 of the U.S. Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe. And he has taken credit for overturning Roe. He did it again the other day, I heard him. And so he is, I think he mischaracterizes this a bit because he says that people on both sides wanted Roe overturned. I don't believe that to be true. Is that true? Is that accurate?
I don't know that I would put myself out there to say that is true.
Yeah, it's not true. So anyway, the people on the anti-abortion side have been gunning for this for a really long time. We had anyway, so at the same time, the Supreme Court also allowed to be placed on the ballot a proposed constitutional amendment that would enshrine abortion rights into the state constitution.
Correct.
So those were the two. So we've got this conflicting kind of potentially shifting terrain, which makes abortion a very prominent issue in the campaign season in Florida. A couple of things I wanted to ask you about. So the Democrats, the Biden administration or the Biden campaign put out a memo saying that this abortion, the 6-week ban and this amendment put Florida into play in terms of the presidential, the electoral college votes. I don't know about that. What say you?
I think that's what I call political puffery.
Puffery.
I don't know that this issue, more than any other issue, quote, puts Florida in play. I think we're now at the Democrats are now at a 1 million or close to 1 million registered vote imbalance here in the Florida
deficit. Deficit.
After having a surplus over Republicans for many, many, many years, the tide has now turned, and there are a lot of various reasons to argue why that is the case, but it is the case. The numbers are the numbers, and so I don't think that I don't think that it can rightly be said that Florida is still purple or a swing state. No, I think those days are gone.
Florida's a red state. Florida's a deep red state, and I don't know that
with blue pockets.
Yeah, but that's not going to help you.
But that's not going to help. That's not going to help your causes.
It's not going to help you in a presidential election. But having the president here could help drive up turnout for Democrats, and let's remember this abortion amendment, which will be Amendment 4 on the ballot, is nonpartisan. So, we've had Republicans on the podcast talking in favor of it. So it's not a partisan issue. In fact, some of the proponents of the measure really don't want the Democrats to own it because they're afraid it might scare off independents and Republicans. So, big tent kind of approach to getting that passed,
that's
which you need because it's 60% of voters in order for it to pass.
Which they don't have yet, according to the most recent polls.
How much? I had a debate with one of my colleagues here yesterday about the polls. What do you think? How reliant should we be on polls in April for something that goes on the ballot in November? And the 6-week restriction goes into effect after these polls have been conducted.
You can't put too much importance or faith in any one individual poll. But what do you need the individual polls for? You need the individual polls to create the trend line. So what's important, I think, as our former colleague Mark Caputo has said, is it's not about the poll, it's about the trend line. You of course need the polls to make the trend line, but you've got to watch the trend line. So I think the trend line, if I recall correctly from the last time that we covered this, was it's kind of going up a little bit, but it is, at least according to our last reportage on this by USA Today and the USA Today network, we covered an Ipsos poll that says that they're not at they ain't at 60%.
We had something in our story this week about that poll, and It's a complicated issue, but the Democrats are, as we're recording this, Florida Democratic Party Chair Nikki Fried and others are having a press conference, and they're talking about the abortion issue. I mean, they think they're putting a lot of eggs into the abortion basket. That's a really bad...
That's probably not probably not the metaphor you want to use for this particular topic.
Probably not, but you know what I'm saying. They're really...
We'll clean that one up later.
or not. We'll just
we'll leave it.
We'll just roll with it. But you know what I'm saying. They're really they're hitching their wagons to it.
They have absolutely done so and are doing so. Now, is that how much good is that going to do them?
I'm asking you. What do you say?
I don't know, but I don't think it's going to. I don't know how much it's going to drive.
Pocketbook issues.
Thank you.
But you know what? I think we're going to be hearing stories between now and November.
Sure, we will.
We will be hearing some of these horror stories coming out of Texas.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We're already hearing them. They are going to be hammering that issue between now and November. Now, do they run the risk of turning off voters? Are they going to be like, enough already? I'm done. This doesn't affect me. We got a lot of older voters in Florida. It doesn't matter. I mean, I take that back. It's a very salient issue.
Yeah, absolutely is.
And it is a very emotionally wrenching issue for everyone, for not everyone, but for many people who have a strong opinion about it. So I don't know. I mean, I think you're right. We need to watch those trend lines, and we'll see what happens. But the president coming to Florida to talk specifically about abortion rights. The vice president was here not long ago on the same issue, right? So I don't know.
I'll leave you with this on this topic, which is somebody once said, everybody knows somebody who had an abortion, whether they know whether they know it or not.
That's right.
That the somebody that they know had one.
That's true.
It's a lot closer than you think.
Yeah. Also, before we put a pin in that, I am full of cliches today, aren't I?
Yes. Well, you've got them written out on a little pad in front of you, so you just check them off as you use them. Her red pen, Dara's red pen.
It's blue. He's lying. We have a new email address, and we'd love to hear from you. To reach us and give us your input, tell us what you'd like to hear. Tell us what you thought about what you already heard. Tell us how fabulous we are. Join the Deeper Divas team. Send an email to podcasts@e.newsserviceflorida.com. That's podcasts@e.newsserviceflorida.com. And I promise I will read everyone. I think Florida is in play nationally, is what the president said in Tampa.
I saw that.
Yesterday.
What does that even mean, to be in play nationally?
I guess that means those
voting?
electoral college votes are available.
Like if Florida's a candidate, we're going to vote for Florida.
I don't know. I think Florida in play nationally also means, with this abortion amendment and the 6-week ban going into effect, it makes people are looking at Florida. I don't know. I mean, don't ask me to be the one who interprets
I'll make this bet with you.
Okay.
If Donald Trump does not get Florida's electoral votes in November, I will go to Publix and buy a 2-for-1 granola box. Come back here and sit here
I
and
ain't taking that bet.
And I will eat every granola bar in the 2 boxes.
I ain't taking that bet.
BOGO. It's a BOGO bet.
No,
We'll call it a BOGO bet.
I ain't taking that bet. No,
right.
No way. Donald Trump, Florida, hands down in November. You know, I like to make predictions.
There you go.
I used to like to
Okay.
make predictions. Now I like to make predictions. That is my prediction.
Yeah.
I think the question is by a margin of how many percentage points.
Fair
Now
enough.
that I will BOGO you.
Fair
on.
enough.
What's your over and under?
We'll calculate the over under.
Next time we'll do that.
All right.
Okay. Now, moving on to, again, we are recording this in advance, and I'm kind of sorry that we are, but on Friday, former Governor Bob Graham will lie in state. I'm saying he will lie in state because I'm not sure if he will be lying in state or, yes, he will be lying in state at the old Capitol. Bob Graham passed away. He was 87 years old, a former U.S. Senator from Florida, a beloved political figure and a statesman, like a true statesman. He was governor and U.S. Senator and made his... one of the things that he was known for a lot of things, but one of the things he was known for was those work days that he did because he grew up in a wealthy dairy family down in Miami-Dade County. And so to make him...
And then became a developer.
Yeah. And he to make him more of a common man so that the common man could identify with him. They sent him on these work days, and he did when he was campaigning for governor, I believe. And he did these work days, and he actually did them. They weren't like publicity stunts.
No, he did.
And so I don't know if you ever went on any of those work days with him, or if you do. You have any Bob Graham stories?
I have no
to share
Bob.
with us?
Well, the only Bob Graham story that I
Here we
have
go. I knew you had one.
is very, very short. I attended the funeral of Dorothy Clifford, who was the longtime Tallahassee Democrat. She was still working in the newsroom when I got to the Tallahassee Democrat in 1997. She had been the equivalent of, the back when newspapers had women's pages. She was the women's page editor. She was a society page editor. She was a features writer. She was kind of a lady about town. And Dorothy Clifford died, and I remember going to her funeral, which was, of course, held here locally. And afterwards, I'm walking out of the church, and I'm walking down the aisle through the pews, and there's Bob Graham walking past me. And he kind of struck me as this, white-haired kind of like, holy crap, that's Bob Graham.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what to say, so I just said... Not realizing I probably should have said senator.
Right, as governor,
I said, "Hey, governor," and he was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah.
And that's my big.
He's kind of a
that's my big Bob Graham
framed.
interaction.
He was not a large person. He was. I have a Bob Graham story from before I was doing what I do now. I had my daughter at the airport. She was probably about 3 years old. And we were at the airport here in Tallahassee, and I saw him. I think he was the U.S. Senator at the time. And I said to my daughter, like, oh, that's Bob Graham. He used to be the governor. And so she went over to him and she said hi. And he was known on another thing that he was known for was having these notebooks where he recorded everything that he did. And he leaned over and he started talking to her and engaging her. And maybe she was 4. And he he reached into his pocket and he took out a coin. It was a penny. And he said, "This is my lucky penny. I'm going to give this to you, my lucky penny, and tell me what's your name." And he took her name and her address and put it in his notebook. And a couple of weeks later, we got one of these these glossy 8x10 photographs of the senator came from his office in Washington. And so that was our Bob Graham interaction.
That's a wonderful story that I do have to deflate somewhat. I can guarantee you that was not his lucky penny. Oh, he took a penny out of his pocket and he called it.
Leela, don't believe it.
Leela, it's a lie. It's a regular penny. But the story is great, and that's the thing.
It was a sweet. I mean, the reason that I tell that story, it's a little long, but she's not a constituent. He was the. We've talked about the consummate retail politician. He really was a fantastic retail politician.
And that's, I think, what you need to take away from that story, which is, I'm sure he was a nice man. I'm sure he was a good man, but that story also illustrates his emotional intelligence, his expertise as almost the quintessential retail politician. Like, how could you have done better in that situation as a politician meeting a little girl? Like, you hit all the notes you need to do. And guess how we know that interaction was a success as a retail politician? Because you're telling it 30 some years later, and you still remember it, and you remember what he did, and it still holds a place in your mind. And so, bingo.
Yeah, and I've been, and I've had conversations with Senator, I call him Governor too, Governor Graham, when his daughter Gwen was running for governor. At her, her events, I spent time with him on the road, campaigning, not a lot, but interacted with him. None of those interactions do I remember. I remember that time outside the airport.
You remember that time standing at the airport? And how many times have you told the story now since that happened?
Since that happened,
dozens.
Probably, yeah. But since he died,
and even more now since he's passed. There you go. Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, he will be lying in state, and by the time this comes out, that will already.
He will have lain in state by the time this comes out.
Lied.
Lain. He will have lain in state.
Yeah. Have you ever been to one of those?
I have not. I believe that I was at the Democrat. I was not at the old Capitol, but I was at the Democrat when we covered Bobby Bowden, the late former legendary Florida State University football coach, when he lay in state at the old Capitol. And to be clear, Bob Graham will also lie in state at the old Capitol.
That's right. I know. I actually did not do that one, but Wayne Mixon.
Wayne Mixon, yes.
Who was governor for a nanosecond, was...
and good for him.
Yes. So anyway, that one I did attend, so I have an idea of where it's going to be. I think there will probably be a much larger crowd or maybe not. I mean, Wayne Mixon was a governor, and so there were a lot of people came. And then, anyway, so rest in peace, Bob Graham. May his memory be a blessing.
And I will say that obviously the Tallahassee Democrat will be covering the late governor. U.S. Center will be lying in state from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. What is this upcoming Friday? By the time you are hearing this, will be the last Friday. We of course will cover that. I spoke to a guy by the name of Chris Hand,
Chris Hand is the old Bob Graham aide. He's done a lot of comms.
Jacksonville lawyer, political type, and he's kind of. The de facto family spokesperson right now.
Yeah, he's the maestro.
And they are expecting crowds.
Are they?
I actually asked if we would even be seeing nationally known or even internationally known figures, and he basically said maybe. Not exactly sure, but a lot of state people that you would know, Florida figures obviously will be coming to Tallahassee to pay their respects.
I mean, but President Obama and President Biden both did issue very,
statements of paying respects.
Yes. So he was a thing. I mean, he played a part in. He played important roles in the Senate and did a lot of accomplished much in Florida for the environment. So we'll see who. Again, this will already have taken place by the time y'all are listening to this. So.
And it should also be noted he had a very, very, very serious and committed interest in getting to the bottom of 9/11
Yes.
after it happened, and somewhat pointedly trying to figure out what, as part of that, trying to figure out what the, if any, what the Saudi involvement was with
Right.
that plot.
Right.
And Dan Christensen, who runs the Florida Bulldog, has been covering post 9/11 stuff on his website for a long time, and he recently published kind of a tribute and a remembrance of Bob Graham within that context of 9/11
yeah.
evidence.
He was the co-chairman, I think, of the 9/11
that committee.
Yeah.
So that might be worth, if you're interested in that, check out Dan Christensen's remembrance of Bob Graham and trying to dig into what happened with 9/11.
Well, thanks a lot for letting us know about that. And I think that brings us to a close. Anything else we need to hit on for this week? It's a little kind of a slow week in the summer. Got the summer doldrums and is it summer yet? I guess
it's not quite summer.
It feels like summer on some days.
Obviously, for those of us who follow the process, Governor DeSantis is still doing a lot of bill signings.
Yes.
He's doing kind of like themed weeks.
Yes, this was environmental week.
Environmental week. There was Law and Order week.
Yep.
And who knows what next week will bring? Although we still have not.
I think he did Education Week already.
He did.
Too.
Okay, that's right. He did Education Week. We're still waiting for the legislature to formally send the budget.
I know.
And the supporting documents is clear. The governor has made very clear in his recent appearances to date that he and his team have been going through the budget.
Yes.
You can count on plenty of line item vetoes. We don't know we don't know how many, but certainly there will be a number of line item vetoes that will come out. But obviously that can't happen until he's formally. The legislature formally transmit.
Well, they're coordinating all that.
And they're coordinating all that.
I mean, that's but that's fine. I mean, there's nothing.
And we'll be ready when that happens.
Yeah, they're coordinating.
Of course.
I mean, he gets the bills, and then usually the next day he signs them, or the same day, or very little air between when he receives them. In general, there's a couple I think that have been hanging out for a while, but the big high profile or the more important, not that every piece of legislation isn't important to someone.
Oh, of course.
The more
ask your favorite lobbyist.
But you know what I'm saying. There's a lot of coordination that's going on between when he gets the bills and when he signs them. And like
absolutely.
I said, that's fine.
That's fine. That's the process.
Yeah, it's the process. All right, so here we are. Let me see if I have it written down.
I know. Go back to your little notepad.
My old
with your non-existent red pen.
I wanted to say the Capitol bureaucrat.
No, not the Capitol bureaucrat. It's a great title for something, though.
So
next album.
Here, I'll do it this way. Senior writer Dara Cam and podcast hostess.
Yes, hostess with the mostest.
Yeah.
Talking to Jim Rosica, who is the news director of the Tallahassee Democrat and also the Capitol Bureau coordinator for the USA Today network in Florida. We have a multiplicity of newspapers, including, of course, the Tallahassee Democrat, but also the Pensacola News Journal, the Florida Times-Union in Jacksonville, the Naples Daily News, the Fort Myers News Press, Treasure Coast, the TC Palm.
He is always good at giving at plugging his
the Palm
entity.
Beach Post. My God, I've
Very
forgotten
loyal to
about
his
them.
principles. I used to work for the Palm Beach Post.
I remember your office in the press center.
Yeah.
It was up on the second floor when I was down on the first floor.
Yep.
At the dearly
We had
departed Tampa Tribune.
We had a sweet office, and then they moved us into like a broom closet, and that was a sign.
That was a sign that things were
It's a
troubled.
harbinger of things to come.
The Cox sisters were mad at you, former owners of the newspaper.
Cox sisters, yeah. Oh, the glory days, the halcyon days of the Palm Beach Post.
Exactly, when everybody had travel budgets and expenses.
Jim Rosica, thank you so much for coming back to the Terracotta Room. We'll have you back again soon, my friend.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. Good to see you again. Good to see everybody in the old offices here, and I'll be now going in the back looking for all those albums.
Don't forget your mugs.
And that.
You're listening to A Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida.